Fusion 360 is very powerful CAD software, but with great power come great responsibilities, and it can seem a little overwhelming in the beginning, and there is some best practices to get a good model. In this basic video, I will take you through those basic steps, and I will model up a part from start till finish. Hi everybody, my name is Lars Christensen and thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. This video is the video that I wish I had come across when I started using Fusion 360. Taking a part like this is a plastic conduit, might find a few of these around in your house, and model it up from start till finish. But not just click and then be done. We're actually going to slow down a little bit and talk about some of the why we're doing certain things. So if you're a CAD ninja, this video is probably not for you. But if you're brand new to Fusion 360, or if you have a certain areas that kind of like confuses you a little bit, well, then sit tight. Lastly, before we get started, I love your comments and suggestions down in the comment area down there. I know many people read them. I can promise you that I read them all. And if you like this video, do me a favor and hit that thumbs up. If you don't, well, hit the thumbs down. And if you haven't already, I would really appreciate if you hit that subscribe button. So let's get going here. So the first thing you're going to make sure of is that we are in the model environment inside of Fusion 360. This is like what we call parametric modeling. Second, we also want to make sure that our units is correct. Now you can change the units in the preferences up here in the drop down, so they always default to whatever you want. But you can also change it right here on the fly. I think that's another important thing to know. And we're going to do this in millimeters. Get okay to that. And now we are in millimeters. So if we're looking at this conduit, we can say that it has 4 parts. There's kind of the box, there's a lid, and then there is 2 screws. Now, if you're coming from another CAD system, you might be used to that we would create each component and then merge them together later in assembly file. We actually don't have to do that inside of Fusion 360. We can do it all in one file. It is good practice, though, that if you are going to do that, to kind of like decide to do that up front. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a component that's going to be the box. We're going to create a component that's going to be the lids. And then we're actually just going to bring in the screws from the McMaster catalog that resides right inside of Fusion 360. Now, before we start drawing anything, we're going to go ahead and create those components here in the tree. We're going to do that by just going up and right-click and say New Component. Now, as soon as we do that, then we will see we get a component here, and the top component actually kind of like shows us an assembly icon. Now, if you are looking for more information about components, I would recommend that you watch the video. There should be a card coming flying out here, and I've also put it down in the description for the components video I created. So if you really want to dig deep into that, check that out. So the first component here is going to be the box. So we can click on that and we can actually rename that. I'm just going to call it box. And then I'm going to go up and create one more component up here by right-clicking and say New Component. And that one we're going to call the lid. Slow click. I'm just going to call that the lid. So what we have now is we have a master top component or assembly, and then we have the 2 components right here. Now you will see that there's a little eye looking at you next to the name. That depends on what component that is active. So whatever this fish eye is activated on, right now the lid, if I go up and I activate it on the box, now the box component will be active. And we're going to start out with the box here to model this part up. Now, what each component here has in it is it has its own origin. And I actually prefer to turn that on. So I have made sure that my units are right. I have my first component created here, the box, and I made sure that is active. So when I start drawing now, I'm actually drawing within that component. And I have also turned the origin on so I can kind of like see that, because that's one of the things that is important when we start sketching inside of Fusion, is that we tie our sketches down to an origin. It's kind of like nailing things in place in space. So to start, and the first entity on this part is kind of like to rough out the outside perimeter of the box. So when you start a sketch within Fusion 360, a 2D sketch, you always have to start on either a face or a plane. We will create a 2D sketch that we then will extrude into 3D space. Now that sketch gotta be either on a face or a plane. That's a rule. Now in this case here, we don't have a face because we haven't started a sketch. We don't have anything 3D in the model yet. So we have to start on a plane. So we have 3 planes we can pick from. I'm gonna select this plane, but it's not really important what plane you select for this. Now you could go up and use the menus up here and top, and there's a bunch of drop down menus here, but I really don't like hunting for these, and I don't think that it makes any sense for you as a new user to start in here in the drop down and then later on learning other things. I think you might as well just learn the quickest way to start with. So that is to go over here on the plane and right click, and if I right click right here, I can create the first sketch. So I'm going to click on that. And when I do that, automatically the plane will go normal to where we are sketching. So that's why you saw everything spinning. And you will get this menu over here that shows you our sketching constraints. We're going to talk on these in a little second. You will also see that we are starting down here in the bottom to capture the history. So this is one of the powers, as you're going to see as we're modeling up this little box here, is one of the powers is that we have this history. Now, just to go back up to the menu up here, if I hit the drop down, you will see that we have different sketching tools in here to help us. So we have some different types of rectangles, we have some different types of circles and so forth. But like I said before, I really don't like to have to hunt in here. There's actually an easier way. Now, if you scroll down to the description area, you will see the list of shortcuts that I'm going to be using in this video. And you can write them down on a piece of paper or something and put them next to your monitor. Honestly, I don't think it makes sense to learn the software by hunting around in all the drop downs and then later on switching over to the shortcut. There is really just a handful you need to learn. And I will make sure that during the whole video, they will pop up every time I'm using them. So I'm going to start by hitting the S key on my keyboard. When I do that, this little sketch toolbox shows up, and this will actually change depending on what you're working with in the software, as you will see. Now you will see that there already is some different types of sketch tools available in here, but you can actually also search for some of these. So right now there is a rectangle called a 2-point rectangle. I actually want a center rectangle, so I'm going to start searching for that one. So I'm going to search center, and you can see that it's sitting right down here. Now, if I click right here, I will activate the center rectangle. But you can actually also hit the little arrow over to the right and now pin it to that S menu when we hit that S key. So I'm going to do that for this one here. Click that. Now you will see that that is now part of this menu. And again, I got this menu by hitting the S on the keyboard here. So it pops up wherever your cursor is. Really handy. So I'm going to go ahead here and hit the center rectangle. And like I said before, it's extremely important that your first sketch are tied down to the origin. It's kind of like that nail in space. So I'm going to hover over the origin, and I'm going to click once, and then you will see that this center rectangle appear. Now you will see that the dimensions are appearing on each side of this box, which is great. And you will see one of them is light blue. That means I can actually start typing in that dimension right now. So that dimension is going to be 34. So I'm going to type that in. Now to jump to the length of this box, I'm going to hit the tab key on my keyboard. That's going to take me right over to that one. And the length of this one is 83. And now I'm going to hit enter. And you will now see that I have the box displayed. I have the box displayed with my 83 and my 34. And then you will also see that there is some other symbols showing up around my sketch here. They are called relationships. And you will actually see these relationships are all listed over here to my right in my menu. Now, relationships are rules for our 2D sketches. So think about that our sketches can all move around in that plane they are placed on, and the relations will kind of tie them down. So think of it as rules. Now, the way to work with this is that whenever you sketch something up within Fusion 360, first we apply relationships such as verticals, if we're going to make something perpendicular, and then we're going to add dimensions afterwards. You will see me using relationships all through the video. And it's important to remember that the main goal for this is to turn our sketches from blue to black, what's going to turn them from movable to having all tied down and locked down. So with this, I am ready to take this 2D sketch and extrude it into space. Now again, these menus up here have all the commands that you want to use, but I think you're better off just out of the gate, start remembering some of these shortcut keys so you don't have to learn these later on as you're using the software. To extrude into space, I am going to use the Q on your keyboard. So I'm going to click that one, like that. And you will see that now I jumped out of kind of that sketch menu and I'm now in something called press pull. Now I'm going to select what I want to extrude into 3D space, and that's this rectangle here. And then I get a little arrow, and now I can actually start dragging my part into this 3D space. Now I'm going to make this part here 38 tall. So I'm going to type in 38 in that little box there and hit enter. There we have it. We have now created our first true solid on this part here. Now I said before that when we sketch within Fusion 360, we either sketch on a face or a plane. Now the first sketch we put in was on a plane. Now we can actually sketch on faces because we have some. So what we're going to do now is we're going to carve out the center portion of this box. So I am going to right click on that face because I can now start a sketch on that and say create a new sketch. You see it goes normal too. I'm going to zoom in by rolling the mouse wheel here. And I could go ahead and hit the S key and select another center rectangle. And I could go ahead and find the origin again like we did before and sketch another rectangle like this. But on my drawing, it says it's specified not the size of the rectangle, but the size of the wall. So I rather want to use that, and I really like to be lazy when it comes to CAD and CAM. So I'm going to offset the outer edges, the 4 millimeters that is required for that wall. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit my S key, and then I'm actually going to offset. So I can start typing in offset. And as soon as I hit the OF, you will actually see that the offset command shows up right here. So I'm just going to click on that. And when I've done that, you will see that menu appears here. I'm just going to click on the edge. And as I do that, I get an indication that I now can offset that edge. Okay, if I go on the outside here, it's a plus command. If I go on the inside, it is a minus command. So we're looking for minus 4 millimeters. I'm going to hit enter. And now I have a 4 millimeter wall created all the way around. You will see the sketch is black, so we can go ahead and we can extrude that or cut that, and we're going to again use the press pull. So the press pull is used both to extrude and subtract. So I'm going to click on that. And now I'm just going to select that bottom or that inside here, and you'll see if I pull up, it adds material, but if I pull down, then it would actually cut it away. Pretty smart. Now, I'm not really sure what the depth is on this pocket. I know that it's 4 millimeters all the way around. And if I look at my drawing, that is, so I should actually say the box is 38 tall minus 4. Well, that's a lot of math. And I want to show you one of the real cool things about parametric modeling. Because I know that I want it to be 4 millimeters on the bottom of the box, like the sides, I can actually go over here to the menu for this extrude or cutting command, and you will see down here I have something called distance. So that is that distance. You will see that that distance here will change as I'm pulling this little arrow here. And I could do the math, but I will actually rather change this drop down to an object. And then if I scroll over and I click the bottom face, I actually have an offset. And I can actually go in here and I can create that minus 4 millimeter right here. So that means that the cut is going to go from the top to the bottom minus 4. So that's actually kind of like doing the math for me. Let's hit OK to that. And now you will see that we have this here. Now let me just do a section view for you. So if I go over to inspect and say section analysis, if I click on this face here, you'll actually see I can do a little section view. What this means is that it will always keep this to be 4 millimeters, even if we decided to make the box taller. So this is really one of the powers of parametric modeling. By using objects, select the bottom and offset by 4, we are assuring that there will always be 4 millimeters on the bottom, just like we did the offset on the side. This means that if we ever have a design change where we're going to make the box taller, we don't have to worry about that 4 millimeter. That will always be on the bottom. If we had just done a subtraction from the top and down, if you made the box taller, then we'll get more material in the bottom. So this is one of the things that makes parametric modeling, very powerful, that we can set these rules. And the other thing you will see is that we are keeping on growing this little history line down here. So here was our first sketch. Then we extruded that to the box. Then we created the sketch on top, and then we cut that down. And again, if I go in here to edit that feature, I just right click and hit edit. We did it to an object, and we selected that bottom face and created a 4 millimeter offset from the bottom. Okay, so this is really powerful to know some of these functions in here. Now at this point, I am actually going to add a couple of fillets to the part. And again, I'm going to hit the S key. And you will now see the S key looks a little different because we are not inside of a sketch. So now we actually get some other tools. And the first one here is the fillet. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. And I'm going to start with the inner fillets of the box. So I'm just going to hover over here, and I can actually select right through geometry. It's smart enough to know that I'm probably aiming for these inside corners just by hovering over here. And I'm going to go ahead here and just make these 3 millimeters. Hit OK. And you will see that now we have the fillet down in the corner. Now I'm going to create another fillet on the outside. So I'm just going to hit the S key again and go. And again, remember that you could hunt these down up in the area down here. The fillet is also down here. You could also just hit F. That's another shortcut. But S, hit the fillet. And I'm going to select the outside here. Make sure I get the back side. I could, of course, just turn the part around. And I'm going to make the outside here. I'm going to make these 6. All right, so just a quick recap. If you're modeling something up like an assembly, go ahead and make the components first before you start sketching. Always sketch on either a face or a plane. That's the rule. And make sure that you take the time to fully define those sketches. I know you're in a big rush. I know you want to get things done, but it's very, very good practice. So take a 5-minute break. Go and get yourself a cup of coffee. Then come back here and check out the second video where we're going to finish up this box. And I'm going to show you a couple of great tips So hurry back.